Okay. Well, I found myself sort of asked to do some other videos, and I do have an idea in the future for some that'll happen. But for now, I want to take a look at the introduction to the manual for teachers, um, because I find it an interesting document. It really is true. It really is true. Going back through this at this point in time, um, there's a line in this that says teaching is but a call to witness, to attest to what you believe. It is a method of conversion, is not done by words alone. Any situation must be to you a chance to teach others what you are and what they are, not no more than that, but also nevertheless, there's something that I have found. Um, Number one, that's what I wanted to say is talk about witnessing to or attesting to. The thing that I have found in and it really is it's this has been really good for me in doing these videos in this, I would say, more formal sense than my just reading the lessons to myself, but actually using them as a means of looking at where I am in my own process. And I am, in a sense, want to attest to the fact that it's not merely my belief that the process um, the process of forgiveness that we're taught in the Course of Miracles and the manner by which we become miracle minded really does work exactly as um, it says it works here. And having gone full cycle, I mean, I've taught this. It talks about formal teaching situations. Well, I've been in formal teaching situations, and I've been part of formal teaching, learning situations. The thing that I did understand, though, and at a very, very, very deep, I mean, complete level, one of the things that I did get as a complete experience, and yet it did take utilizing these principles and understanding the nature of the nature of what teaching is to learning and what learning is to teaching, or the extension of what it is that you've learned. It's taken a long time to integrate that and to come to an equilibrium where I can utilize every situation. Jesus says, an equilibrium is when you can teach as much as you can learn, and you establish an equilibrium yourself. And I think that's what ultimately we're being asked to do, and which occurs when we get to the characteristics of teacher of God, when we talk about open-mindedness. But I really want to say that having come full cycle, and it's now, God, it'll be 30 years. Um, it'll be 30 years. As a matter of fact, it will be 30 years in February when I first was introduced to A Course in Miracles. And it was probably, I would say, 30 years to the day now, back in 1986, um, where I was in the process of undergoing a revelatory experience, um, and being spoken to directly from the intimacy of a very personal relationship, um, that I had developed, that I was developing with Jesus, and to this very day is important to how I function within this world of space and time. Um, but the thing that I did understand completely in that experience and have used as a guideline in my own healing and how, in a sense, I relate. And this is one of the things it says. This is what it says. How I relate to myself and to others. Now, in the instant when I had the revelation of the fact that the Father and Son is one, there was an instant recognition of the equality of all souls and the fact that all of my brothers were those souls beyond any form of space and time. So that there was an equality to who we are in our ability to learn because we all use the same mind. I also saw at the time that while the equality of learning was there, the utilization for the learning that was in line with the curriculum was not always being utilized equally in that sense. So people were having experiences, in a sense, looked like they were further ahead in the process than one who was not having the experiences. So, and Jesus says it's not homogenous. We all haven't learned the same. And a lot of that has to do with the nature of space and time itself and the quality of the atonement in its necessity to deal with each one individually. Our equality is demonstrated in the atonement by the individual nature that we all get dealt with from the equanimous nature of the mind of God and the mind of the Son of the Christ that we are. It just takes variant experiences to undo, to take us back far enough where the oneness can actually be made manifest without the necessity for the individual, the seeming individuality of bodies in space and time. If you're gonna, we're all going back to where we no longer need it, but we seem to be at different phases of that process. Now, from Jesus's point of view, the occurrence is always complete and whole and occurring. Yet from in time, the view is entirely different. What I have come to understand is, and this is the role of teaching and learning, is actually reversed in the thinking of the world. The reversal is characteristic. It is. Everything in the world of space and time is upside down and backwards. And when we get that, we can begin to use the reflection in a way that actually helps us learn and therefore teach by demonstration what it is we've learned about the self that we've now recognized to be who we are, and the self that we want to integrate back into being totally. Okay, it seems as if the teacher and learner are separate. The teacher giving something to the learner rather than to himself. And down here you'll read, and this is the great equalizer. Where is it here? The purpose of the course might be said to provide you with the means of choosing what you want to teach on the basis of what you want to learn. Okay? You cannot give to someone else, and this you learn through teaching. And what you're teaching is reinforcing your own learning. And the utilization of the reflection in the occurrence is how you learn to use, let's call it the feedback in any situation, to help you see whether you're learning of the true mind that you are or the false mind that you are attempting to no longer pay attention to. That's what it says, you're only teaching oneself or the other, and teach you must. Now, what I have come to understand is there's an activity, and again, teaching and learning situations and this is in a formal situation, these questions. The curriculum that you set up is therefore determined exclusively by what you think you are, yes, and what you believe your relationship, the relationship of others is to you. Okay, now to me, the necessity has always been to integrate my understanding of the equality of who we are as souls in our ability to learn, okay? And recognize that you are that as I am that. And then use the situations that we become involved in as a way of fostering a condition of opening my mind, open-mindedness, it eventually gets to the character, open my mind so that each situation becomes, in a sense, a vortex of learning. Foster a vortex of learning wherein which my true self is leading the way rather than the false self. And that gives my brother a space where different than he has been used to, let's call it. Now, I don't really give him that space. I provide it for myself and allow him to be there with me in the equality of what I know we can learn. I don't know how to say this because what happens for me is, and again, eventually when you learn to use forgiveness, and it'll say in the manual, forgiveness in its relationship to open-mindedness, and open-mindedness is not the willingness to entertain a lot of different concepts. Open-mindedness is the ability to be in a relationship with your brother free from concepts so that who you are can speak to who your brother is without the need for a filter. And as this says, the words that you use in regard to how this occurs may have something to do with the situation, or they may not. Neither, it doesn't really matter because the communication is not here. There is no communication in the world. The communication is going on someplace else. So ultimately, you're either teaching that you're, in a sense, your mind is open and free and not attached to definitions of form and space and time. So that you're recognizing your brother as that too, no matter what it is that seems to be occurring in the situation. And whether the situation is being used correctly or misused by your brother is not the question. The question is being able to do it for you, use it for yourself, so that now you're available to the spirit of oneness, the Holy Spirit, which is in both of us. So that everything that you do can be in line with the learning of who you are and the extension of that learning by the recognition of the equality of your brother as a soul, despite where he seems to be within his own recognition of his reality. Now, there's an open space there. Now, you don't, in a sense, give that. That is a gift that's given to the both of you, and that's where the miracles begin to take place. Okay? Now, ultimately, if this is a Course of Miracles, and we are learning to be teachers, then we're learning to be miraculous in our own mind through forgiveness, and then the allowance for the form association that seems to enter into any situation with us to not be the means by which we judge what's occurring, but allow the Holy Spirit to direct us in all of our affairs so that no matter what it is we seem to be doing, the true nature of the encounters we're having with our brother are all for the benefit of the atonement and for helping us learn of our true perfection as we allow for the perfection to others. And we do this over and over again, as it says, if we were perfect, we wouldn't be here. That's, in a sense, the story of the prodigal son, the son who stayed home. The curriculum. Now, what's interesting is Jesus is doing every attempt to show you that in teaching, it is impossible not to use the content of any situation on behalf of what you really teach and therefore learn. Of course not. To this, the verbal content of your teaching is quite irrelevant. It may coincide with it, or it may not. It is the teaching underlying what you say that teaches you. It is the underlying teaching that teaches you. And when you are learning from that underlying teaching, your mind is now in a condition that is, in a sense, paralleling creation in reality and becomes open-minded here in the sense that the world of space and time is just being used for the purpose that you're given in the nature of the encounters that you're participating in, all of which, this is saying, are being used on behalf of your learning who you are by the decision you have made to teach from the recognition of what you know you are, and in a sense are perfecting the ability to be truthful and integral to what it says. It's inevitable. How could it be otherwise? Everyone who follows the world's curriculum, and here's the important part, and everyone here does until he changes his mind. Not his teaching, until he changes his mind. Because it's quite possible to not change your mind and just use a new set of concepts to continue to teach the same thing as you've always been teaching. And that is the back door that Jesus is alluding to here when he's talking about the fact that the content of the teaching situation has no relationship. It may or may not have a relationship to what it is you're teaching. So you could just as likely think you're teaching A Course in Miracles when your mind is closed and actually you're just teaching from the ego the same thing that's always been taught, just using a different form. Now, there is another way in which you can allow your mind to be open and available to spirit and then use any content as a way of engaging your heart and mind with the truth in order to recognize your brother in the truth of who he is, to foster a condition where the learning is of that single self. Okay? This is the important part. And everyone here does follow it until he changes his mind, teaches solely to convince himself that he is what he is not. Okay? And that change of mind can't be faked because it isn't experienced. It's a change of mind that produces a change of heart. And in the instant that your heart is changed, remember, love is letting go of fear. The purpose of the world becomes different because you're no longer here to be an ego and get love. You discovered that you're not an ego, you're not a body, but you're free. And you're here through the nature of forgiveness to give the blessings that you're receiving in the manner that can be recognized within the nature of the relationship you are in with your brother and all the world, simply because you're demonstrating a beingness that is no longer struggling and toiling. Okay? Now you can be saying those words and still struggling and toiling. Or you could be saying any words, having undergone an experience, not use the words of the Course at all, and still be teaching directly from the heart of the curriculum that is A Course in Miracles and your own true awakening. Now, that is, in a sense, is discovery of how free you really are, and the recognition of the equality of all your brothers in the extent in the inclusion that they are that as well with you. Okay, this is the purpose of the world. The purpose of the world is to help continue in a state of mind wherein which you think you are something that you're not, and do everything to prove it to yourself and to the world. That's what the world is for. But until the change of mind occurs in you, that's what happens. When that change occurs, you will know, because you will have been made different in the twinkling of an eye. Not by, how should I say this? Not by your choice to be made different. Because your choice would have finally been to open your mind to include in that which makes the difference in you, or the Holy Spirit. Okay? Not that you, that is the difference. That's what you would have opened your mind to. Okay? And when you open your mind to that and experience love, true God's love, as being all you are and all your brother is, because it's one and the same thing, now you become a teacher of something other than the world's curriculum, because you've seen the truth of who you are, and your mind demands the integrity of the experience that you just allowed into your conscious awareness. Herein is the purpose of what else then would its curricula be? Into this hopeless, closed learning situation, which teaches nothing but despair and death over and over again in many, many forms. And believe you me or not, it's entirely capable of taking the teachings of Jesus and use them to teach death and despair over and over again, as can be looked at by what was done with the teachings of Jesus when he was here in his own sojourn. So don't fool yourself. That's the necessity for teaching to the experience, and the necessity of allowing your brother the ability in your own heart and mind to have the experience that shows you the equality of the nature of who we are as soul in the Spirit of God that's one. Okay? Into this hopeless and closed learning situation, which teaches nothing but despair, that God sends his teachers. And as they teach his lessons of joy and hope, their learning finally becomes complete. Except for the teachers, there would be no hope for salvation, for the world would seem forever real. The self-deceiving must deceive. Okay? That's why you're not to count on anything in the world of space and time, but you are to count on that which is beyond the ability to be contained or defiled by space and time, which is the truth of the self that we share in the equality of our creation by our Father. Mm-hmm. And what else is hell but self-deception? This is a manual for the teachers of God. They are not perfect, or they would not be here. Yet it is their mission to become perfect here. And so they teach perfection over and over in many, many ways until they have learned it. Then they're seen no more. And there are those of you who are part of, and then they will be seen no more within a relatively short period of time here within the awakening that's happening to many of you. It's happening, right? Those bright moments are the experiences that you need to have in order to show you that you have changed your mind, and recognize that the discomfort that you feel after that is because the Spirit is urging you to integrate those bright moments into your recognition and not use the learning of the past that the ego would use when it teaches its curriculum. Okay? Who are they? How are they chosen? How are they chosen? What do they do? How can they work out their own salvation and the salvation of the world? This manual attempts to answer these questions. Yes, the manual attempts to answer the questions in a way which is consistent with the ability for you to learn as you teach yourself through the recognition of the nature of the ability for us to share a whole mind and therefore directly experience the truth of who we are, and then use time to stay in or utilize that direct perception, that open-minded learning, to be in the world but not of the world as we are with our brothers, and not validate the world as their reality, but validate the soul as their reality, because in validating the equality of the nature of this soul and the Spirit of God as one in them, we make it true for ourselves within our own learning. And that's the nature of what's occurring. So don't be confused by formal situations in which someone is claiming to teach you something that you don't already know. The most he can help you do, and this is what Jesus wanted to reinforce for Bill, the most he can help you do is foster a situation or foster an event or foster a moment in space and time wherein which both of you are capable of dropping the conceptual identity and roles that you're using in this situation in order to come together to have a miraculous recognition of the truth of who you are and the oneness of the kingdom of reality. Then you've had a true moment of learning in a false condition where learning is necessary.